TPU, or thermoplastic polyurethane, is a variant of the polyurethane that is so common in shoe soles nowadays. What is different about TPU is the thermoplastic part of it. Thermoplastic means it becomes moldable, it becomes formable when it is hot. So this is a very good characteristic to have, a very good property to have if you're making shoe soles or if you're injection molding shoes. First, you use some TPU, you let that go into the mold first, let it harden, and then you injection mold the TPU foam, the PU foam into that. What you do in that way is you create a more resilient, more resistant outer layer that is a bit thicker than what you would get with just injecting the PU and just getting the integral skin. The downside of that, the upside, it's more stable. The downside of that is in production you can use even cheaper and even less sturdy foam on the inside. The foam in such TPU soles, TPU shoes is just a filler. It doesn't really perform much of a structural function, much of a support function. That's bad enough in the finished shoe, but if you want to attempt a repair job on that or a modification on such shoes, you might run into two problems. Problem number one, the foam is very, very unstable, probably already breaking apart, and the other problem is sticking to the TPU itself. That is one application of TPU. The other application is we now see it more and more in sole protectors or even in full soles, depending on the shoe brand, but depending on the market. Not every market has this yet in every country, but this is also an injection molded material. Sometimes you can even still see the injection marks, and looks a bit like rubber, doesn't smell like rubber, but it is TPU in this case. Very sturdy, very good abrasion, but difficult to bond. Generally, how do you recognize TPU? Both in its compact form or pure form, as well as a shell for polyurethane foam. One of the characteristics of TPU is that it is thermoplastic, so it melts when you heat it. And that's also how you recognize it. So if you grind it, the grinding creates heat, that heat melts the TPU and it actually melts into a liquid. Unlike PVC, which melts into chunks, which comes off in chunks, TPU melts in a liquid, and if you grind a red TPU sole on a blue grinding belt, your belt will be red afterwards. And if you do it too much, you can actually probably throw the belt away. So that is basically how you tell the two apart. It's not that crucial because you can actually bond TPU in the same way as you can bond PVC. Telling TPU and TR apart is very easy because TR doesn't melt in that way, and it also has hollow chambers inside, a honeycomb structure inside, and no foam. So on TPU, no rehagol. You can use Col de Cologne or Synthetic Total or Multi-Col straight. If you want to improve the bond a little bit more, you can add our primer for PU to the TPU, the compact TPU. It interacts with it a little bit more, reinforces it a little bit more, and then you can apply the adhesive. Other than that, grind it before bonding, make sure it's clean, use some solvent on it, and that's that. On a foamed out TPU sole, bonding to the TPU is one thing, Synthetic Total, Multi-Col, Col de Cologne, any of those. The other issue is bonding to the foam, because the foam is usually quite unstable and probably already crumbling a bit. Same as with polyurethane soles, the primer for PU does a very good job here in reinforcing that soft PU foam if it's not too far gone yet. If it's already breaking out of the sole, as can be seen here, I mean that foam is already gone. That cannot be bonded back in, obviously, not even with using the primer. But if it's not that far gone yet, either use the primer on the PU foam, then work with Col de Cologne or Multi-Col, or if you're working with Synthetic Total, you don't even need the primer, you can use that straight. If you're doing a build-up though, Synthetic Total might not be the best idea because build-ups are usually made from EVA. Synthetic Total, like all PU-based adhesives, doesn't stick to EVA. Col de Cologne does that very well, as does the Multi-Col. So that might be the better solution in this case.